Let me ask you a strange question before we begin. Picture the last time you came home from seeing someone, sat down in your chair, and felt lighter afterward. Truly lighter. Now picture the opposite. The visit, the phone call, the lunch that left your shoulders tighter and your chest a little hollow. Hold both of those memories side by side for a second, because somewhere between them lies the most important lesson of your later years, and almost nobody talks about it. I have sat with a great many people who are near the end of their story. In quiet rooms, in gardens, beside hospital windows. And I expected them to speak of death or pain or things left undone. Sometimes they do. But far more often, what surfaces is softer and sharper at the same time. A daughter told me, "I love my brother, but every call takes a week out of me." A widower said, "Boring, and the cup in front of me is never full, and mine is bone dry." Another woman simply whispered, "I don't know how to step back without feeling like a monster." If any of that touched something in you, then stay with me. Because today we are going to speak honestly about 5 kinds of people who may be quietly draining the light out of your remaining years. Not enemies, not strangers on the street. People you may love with your whole heart. And I want to promise you something right at the start. This is not a teaching about walls or coldness or turning your back on anyone. It is a teaching about clear sight, about a kind of love that finally, after all these years, remembers to include you. There is a quality the Buddha spoke of called Upekkhā. Most people translate it as equanimity, and most people misread it entirely. They imagine a stone face, a shrug, a heart that has stopped feeling. But that is not it at all. Upekkhā is the ability to stand in the fire of another person's need and not be burned to ash. To love someone deeply, yet not be dragged under by them. To keep your feet on the ground while the wind of their emotions. The Buddha once said that you, yourself, deserve your own love and care as much as any being in the entire universe. Read that again slowly. Not less than others. As much. This is not vanity. It is the root from which real kindness grows. An empty well gives no water. A candle burned down to nothing lights no room. So let me ask you plainly, whether you are 60 or 80 or somewhere in between, how much light is left in you? And more importantly, who has been quietly spending it? Buddhist teaching treats a human life as something almost unbearably rare and valuable. Not just because it is brief, but because it is a doorway. And in the later years, that doorway opens onto a strange gift. Younger people rush past it. But you, now, in this chapter, carry a clarity you simply did not possess at 30. The urgency has quieted. The noise has thinned. The question is only this: are you using that clarity for your own awakening? Or is it being burned up, hour by hour, on people who will never notice it is gone? The Buddha saw these patterns in human relationships long ago. He named them. He warned his students about certain company that pulls the mind away from peace. Not out of cruelty, but out of protection for something sacred. So let me walk you through 5 of them. As I describe each one, do not rush to point a finger at them or at yourself. Just notice. Just see. The first is the one who is never done complaining. You know this person immediately. Maybe it is a brother who has worn the same grievance for 40 years like an old coat. Maybe a neighbor who phones each afternoon with a fresh disappointment. Maybe, and I say this softly, a dear old friend who has connected to the world through unhappiness for so long that unhappiness has become their language. The conversation always finds the same channel. The aching knee, the ungrateful children, the rude clerk, the doctor who did not listen. And you sit there and receive it because you are decent, because you hope that this time your patience might finally heal something. But the Buddha noticed something here, and every good physician of the mind has confirmed it since. There is a word, papanka, the mind's habit of taking one small splinter of discomfort and spinning it into an entire forest of misery. For a person lost in this, no answer will ever satisfy, because they are not searching for answers. They are searching for a witness. And when you become that witness, week after week, year after year, their heaviness does not lift. It
Moves.
simply it travels quietly into you. You walk in feeling steady and walk out feeling like you are wearing wet clothes. That feeling is real and it has a cost. For someone in their later years, it steals sleep, weakens the body, and slowly dulls your own capacity for joy. So what does wisdom do here? Not slam a door, not vanish. It practices what I would call caring without absorbing. You can still offer warmth. You can still love them. But you can hold the visit to an hour instead of 4. You can gently turn the river of conversation towards something that lifts you both. You can say, with real tenderness, I want to hear you, and I also need us to find a little light together today. That is not abandonment. That is simply refusing to drown beside someone who has chosen the water. The second is harder, because we love them so terribly. This is the one who wields guilt like a soft blade, often a child, or a spouse of many decades, or a friend older than most of your memories. They never raise their voice. They do not need to. They have learned the quiet art of making their pain feel like your fault. After all I've done for you, don't worry about me. I'll manage. Alone. You've changed. You used to care. Each line is a small hook, cast gently toward your conscience, and it catches. In Buddhist understanding, this often grows from lobha, a grasping, clinging hunger. We usually think of that word as greed for money or things, but it runs deeper. It can become a desperate need to hold another person in place, to control where they go and what they feel. Underneath the guilt tripper is almost always fear. Fear of being left behind, fear of losing their grip on you. And so they turn your own love into a rope. Here is something to hold quietly, not to answer out loud. When you cancel your plans for this person, when you apologize for something that was never yours, when you bend, are you moving from love or from fear? Fear of their tears, fear of the silence afterward, fear of being called selfish by people who were not in the room. The Buddha taught that anything born of fear cannot ripen into peace, not for you and not for them. Wisdom here is the courage to ask what you truly owe someone and to tell the difference between honest responsibility and a debt that was invented to bind you. You can love a person completely and still refuse to be steered by their sorrow. The third drinks something even deeper than your patience. This one does not merely describe their troubles. They pull you into them again and again until you feel personally responsible for keeping their whole life from falling apart. The calls come at odd hours. The favor is always urgent, and there is always one more. The crisis demands your presence right now, your advice right now, your heart right now. And the moment you take even one step back, they treat it as betrayal. I have known many people in their late years caught in exactly this. A woman who spent her entire life caring for her children, her husband, her fading parents, and who now finds herself the emotional anchor of a grown child who never learned to steady himself. She cannot sit quietly for 10 minutes without the phone lighting up. She wakes at 3 in the morning, not from her own worries, but carrying someone else's. In Buddhist terms, this leans on upadana, clinging, the frantic grip of someone who has not yet found any steadiness inside themselves. You have become their outer supply of calm. And here is the ache of it. By always rushing in, you quietly prevent them from ever finding their own footing. The kindest thing you can offer to them and to yourself is what I would call loving distance. Not absence. Not a cold shoulder. Just the deliberate, tender choice to be a little out of reach so that they finally have room to discover the peace you already carry within you. Protect your mornings. Protect your silence. Protect the stillness that makes any inner life possible. At your age, these are not luxuries. They are medicine, and the dose matters. The fourth is quieter and easily missed. Because on the surface, they seem gentle. They are simply tethered to the past, to old stories, to the version of you that existed decades ago. They bring up a mistake from 30 years back as though it happened this morning. They speak of you as the worrier, the anxious one, the one who always needed rescuing, as if you have not aged a single day in spirit since 1985. Oh, You were always like that. That's just who you are. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to fold yourself back into that old shape. You start reacting as the smaller, more frightened person you once were, because the groove is deep and worn, and sliding into it feels easier than climbing out. This runs against one of the deepest truths the Buddha ever pointed to. Anicca. Everything changes. Nothing holds still. Every thought, every cell, every version of who you are is already dissolving and reforming. The Buddha saw this not as a loss, but as freedom. You are not who you were at 40 or 60 or even last winter. Neither are they. But this person is quietly at war with that truth. They need you to stay frozen. Because if you grow, if you find calm and depth and wisdom, it cracks the story they have told about you, and perhaps the story they cling to about themselves. For those in the later chapters of life, this carries a hidden danger. It can whisper your season of growth is over, that you are simply who you have always been, and that transformation belongs to the young. But the ancient records tell a different tale. The Therigatha, the songs of the elder nuns, is filled with women who awakened late, who shed their old skins entirely, who became new after lifetimes of the ordinary. You are still becoming. Do not let anyone chain you to a self you have already outgrown. The fifth may be the most cunning, because they sound so gentle, so reasonable. At your age, why sit around meditating? Shouldn't you be out enjoying life? All this spiritual business, it's making you distant. You're not yourself anymore. Or the one that stings most, it's just a phase. I only want you to be realistic. It arrives dressed as concern. Sometimes the concern is even genuine, only misplaced. But look carefully, and often something else is stirring underneath. Your growth unsettles them. When you begin to sit in quiet, when you start questioning the patterns you once lived by, when you guard your time and choose your company with new care, certain people grow uneasy. Because your change becomes a mirror, and they are not ready to face what it reflects. In Buddhist language, this touches mikkha, wrong view, not a small factual error, but a deep misunderstanding of what a human life is even for. This person assumes that after a certain age, the door to real growth has shut. That wisdom is for the young or the learned. That peace is something to be postponed or quietly given up on. Yet the Buddha himself taught until his last breath. Among those who reached awakening in his tradition were farmers, grandmothers, former kings, and plain, unremarkable people who came to the path only in their final years and still arrived. Your practice is not a hobby. Your path is not a passing mood. It may be the most important work a human being can do. And the later years, when ambition loosens its grip and the old roles fall away, can be the richest soil you have ever been given. So when someone, even lovingly, tries to talk you out of it, you can listen kindly, thank them, and then return quietly to your own stillness. Now, I suspect something is stirring in you. You recognize these faces. You love them. And everything inside you rebels against the idea of stepping back. Because you are not cold. You are not the kind of person who abandons. You believe in loyalty, in family, in showing up. I honor that completely. But let me offer you one distinction that can change everything. There is a practice called Mettā, loving kindness, in which we wish every being well. Those near, those far, even those who have wounded us. But notice what Mettā never demands. It does not require your body in the room. It does not require your phone always answered, your sleep sacrificed, your peace handed over. You can send genuine warmth to the endless complainer from clear across town. You can hold the guilt tripper in your heart with real tenderness while quietly refusing to be managed. You can wish the draining one true healing without becoming the vessel that pours it at the cost of yourself. Nearness is not the same as love. Many of us were raised to believe love is proven by endurance, by how much we tolerate, by how little we dare ask for ourselves. But I have never once seen that belief lead anyone to peace. You can love someone fully with every corner of your heart and still choose to protect your own light. These two things do not fight each other. In truth, Only when your inner flame is protected do you have anything real left to give. Let me invite you to pause with me now. You need not close your eyes, though you may. Just settle. Bring to mind one person who tends to leave you a little emptier than before. No blame in this, only clarity. See their face gently. Now ask yourself, slowly, 3 things. First, how do I feel after our time together? Not during, but an hour later, the next morning. Sit with that. Second, when I stretch myself for this person, when I give more than I have, moving from love or from fear of what happens if I don't? And third, what would the wisest and kindest version of me actually do here? Not the most guilty, not the most agreeable, the wisest. This is not therapy, and it is not judgment. This is vipassana, clear seeing, turned toward your ordinary days. The Buddha did not teach us to see clearly only on a cushion. He taught us to carry that clarity into every room of our lives. So, when you look plainly, what do you see? Let me close by speaking straight to you. The years ahead of you are not a leftover, not a slow fading, not the quiet echo of a life already spent. They are an offering, and in many ways the most luminous years a seeker ever receives. The ambitions have gone quiet. The masks you once wore with such effort have loosened. The self, if you have done even a little inner work, has grown more transparent. That is rare beyond measure, and precious beyond words. The old texts overflow with people who reached liberation, not in the flush of youth, but in age. Widows, grandmothers, ordinary souls who lived 60 years half asleep and then, one plain afternoon, simply woke. That is available to you. Now, in this very chapter, only if you guard it. Guard your silence. Guard the hours you set aside for breathing and sitting and simply being. Guard your small circle of true companions. And yes, guard your energy, not selfishly, but the way a gardener shelters a late bloom, knowing the season is short and the frost can arrive without warning. The 5 we spoke of, the complainer, the guilt-bearer, the draining one, the anchor to the past, the doubter, they are not villains. They are suffering beings, just as we all are. They deserve compassion. They deserve your loving kindness. But they do not deserve your final years. Those belong to you. I will leave you with an old blessing, in the language the Buddha's words were first held in. You need not understand the syllables. Just receive what lies behind them. Sabe sata sukhita hontu. May all beings be happy. Sabe sata avra hontu. May all beings be free from danger. Sabe sata abhyapajha hontu. May all beings be free from suffering. Sabe sata sukhi atana pariharantu. May all beings care for themselves in happiness. And that, dear friend, has always included you. Go gently. Go clearly. And may whatever years remain be filled with the peace you have always, always deserved.